I didn't realize that no one else did this. I had no fucking clue. I had no idea. I'd show people this stuff and they're like, what the fuck are you doing?
Welcome to Coach 'em Up Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Riley. I'm joined here today by Matt Watson. Matt, how are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to be in Austin, Texas.
Yeah. So can you tell the people why you're in Austin, Texas?
Well, we have a seminar tomorrow.
Yes, we do.
have people call it like a Plusplyos seminar. I do sometimes, I sometimes don't. I just say it's just a seminar with me learning about Plyometrics, being educated in how to coach it. And you have been very kind in setting everything up here, collective. So I'm super grateful for that. And we have a great cohort of guys that are coming in. We've got over 30 coaches, physical therapists coming in from a few different places, and not just from Texas, which I that to me, like if I would have told myself that 3 or 4 years ago,
people were traveling to come see,
like no way.
So cool.
And I would have shit myself at that prospect, right? I'd been like, has to be good.
Oh no,
these guys are getting on planes,
right? They get here and I just blow it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, we set that up. When was it? January time. I was like, I wanted to come out and do one in Texas anyway. And we'd spoken in the past about it a little bit. So yeah, since we moved to Southern California in November, I was like, less than 3 hours to fly out here is perfect. Brought my wife and daughter here as well because they wanted to see, my wife wanted to see the place.
I'm going to try and get you to move here like everybody else.
This is what I hear. So we arrived to pissing rain and thunderstorms last night, and my wife was like, "This ain't the place we come to visit." But we woke up to beautiful weather this morning. So, and I hear it's great here. So we're excited to.
I've sent you many food recommendations, so I'm excited to get your feedback.
Yeah, we hit a burger spot, Jew Boy Burger.
Boy Burgers. Yeah. Holy shit.
Amazing. Shout out Jew Boy Burgers. Any level of sponsorship you want to give the show, please God. The best burger in Austin, Texas, for sure. Oh yeah. If you're sat eating burgers, like this would be the best conversation.
Yeah, that would
be a messy podcast.
It would. Well, we could turn it into like a coaching and life, and also like a ratings show, and I can pick different food markets from around Austin. And that's all we do. Honestly, I'm not opposed to that. Well, so look, we know each other. We've spent a lot of time corresponding over the past few months, but maybe not everyone knows you. Yes. So can you give me and the listeners and everyone watching like the elevator pitch on who you are and what you do and how'd you get here?
Yeah, I'm someone that loves movement, dynamic movement, and my journey has kind of been from being a high jumper, playing a bit of basketball. Well, playing basketball, realizing that you have to start playing basketball when you're like 5 years old and not when you're 17.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And quickly realized that, I'd never realized that I was quite athletic. That's a bit of a, I don't know. It's a bit of a shit thing to say about yourself, but people around me were saying, you can jump pretty well on this court. That's about the only thing you can do on this court.
Right, yeah. You can't dribble or shoot for shit.
You can throw the ball through the hoop, but you can't shoot from 2 feet. Like, but like straight away, like within like 18 months of me trying to play basketball, it was like, I was like thrusted down to a track. It was like, go high jump, go learn to high jump. And I think the first time I'd ever tried high jump since I was maybe 11 or 12, I think I scissored 6 feet. So
what?
Yeah, it was straight away.
Were you not doing anything athletic?
So I played soccer or football.
Okay,
played the whole of my life.
Okay, that adds up. I was like, dude, you just like fucking cold, just no sports.
You imagine just
I was
off
like,
the
my
sofa.
God, dude, you should be in the Olympics if you'd only started earlier.
I know. So football's weird, right? Or soccer. I'm going to call it football.
Call it football. Do your thing. Yeah.
It's strange that there's certain elements to it where you don't really expose or show sometimes like athletic movements off that well. Like you might be someone that's fast or someone that can change direction, okay, but like to jump, you don't know how many guys can jump really well.
Like everyone, an opportunity to express it, really, right?
In headers, okay, but I'm 6'3" anyway, so I'm going to win a lot of headers,
sure,
no matter what.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of a strange thing to have not known that I was a decent jumper until it was like going onto a court. And the first time I'd ever tried to dunk a basketball, I dunked a basketball. So it was like,
what?
Yeah, there was these.
That's nuts, dude. You know that? How crazy that is?
Apparently so.
I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, Jesus Christ. I hope I wake up tomorrow and realize I can run a 4.5.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, what a trip. Were your friends and people around you like, dude?
Well, that's why I played basketball. They were like, oh, well, you have to come play basketball now. I was like, I'm sure there's a little more to that. I can't just be the guy that dunks on people, right?
I mean, kind of that's all I am now. I mean, and I played basketball my whole life. It's the only thing I got now. Anyway, keep going. I'm sorry.
But it was funny because I think it corresponded well with, you know, I'd topped out on my growth, and I'd obviously like gone through like a big spike in puberty and then come out the other side in a situation where I was getting bored of playing football because it was literally what I lived and breathed since I was like 5 years old.
Yeah.
So then we have what's called sixth form college in the UK. So we don't have the last 2 years of high school like you guys do. We finish at 16 and then we have 2 or 3 years in an in-between where you specialize in something and then you go on to decide what degree you'll do.
Really?
So you take what's called an A level. So you might take 3 or 4 A levels and you'll choose like chemistry, maths, and you might specialize in a science.
Understood.
Rather than doing everything.
Just like general shit.
Yeah.
Right.
We don't do general
Is
shit.
it like, it's almost like a general prep for college or university?
Well, it's not even general, it's more specific prep.
Yeah, yes.
Because if you want to, let's say you want to be a chemist, you would literally go and
doing
just
chemistry
study
now.
chemistry at 16.
Yeah.
So when I went to that, so you leave, it's like leaving kind of high school in the UK and then you'll go to a different place where all these different kids from different high schools come together.
Whoa.
So I got friendly with a couple of guys that played basketball at a pretty high level. And they were like, you're 6'3", like have you ever played basketball? I was like, no. And we were pissing around one day and they were like, try and dunk the ball. And I genuinely didn't know how to dunk a basketball. Like, you just need to put the ball through the hoop. And I was given a ball and
jammed it.
I threw a dunk down. So they were like, you got to play for our team. The rest of our team sucks. They had like 2 or 3 guys. And you know what's crazy as well is that now that sixth form college or school, whatever you want to call it, is now an academy school that is one of like 12 colleges in the whole of the UK that has a specialized like system. It's become far more like an American high school or collegiate system.
Really?
And one of the guys that went through there, so I went back there to teach and to coach as an S&C coach, plays for the Spurs now.
What?
Jeremy Sochan, who's the guard now, he went to the sixth form college that I went to. He only went there for a year. He went there so get this, he was playing with 18, 19-year-olds and he was 15. He went there, he fast-tracked and then he went to La Lumiere High School in the US, I think around when COVID hit. But anyway, so that's kind of, it was like a change in my life where I was like, I was obviously starting to do things where things that I wouldn't normally do that I was doing in high school. All my high school friends played football, played a bit of rugby, but not much. I mean, again, just
so long and tall,
so
brutal.
slight.
I played outside linebacker and safety in American football here in the States. Yeah. In my freshman year of high school, I was 6'1", 155. It was not fun. It was a rough time.
You just get folded.
I was getting broken off all the time.
Yeah. So that, it was like a year and a half of playing basketball and then realizing it was kind of like, we need to get people for a track and field team for our college. Okay. I was taken down to a track. I competed, cleared 6 feet because I didn't know how to actually high jump. So I just scissored. They're like, just scissor kick over it. Cleared 6 foot. They're like, we need to get you down to a track. And funnily enough, I then meet my coach, who's been my mentor for 15 years.
Wow.
That day. The first high jump coach, Canadian guy called Eric Little, who'd coached Olympians, Commonwealth Games, athletes, and the kind of rest is kind of history in terms of how that led me into just falling in love with plyometrics and jump training and movement.
That is a wild origin story. That is crazy. And I say that because, the typical thing is like, I started playing sports when I was little and I played this and that. But with you, and then, it's more impressive too, is like dunking, there's a serious skill component that gives you an edge.
Apparently so. Yeah.
I mean, not for you, evidently.
Apparently not.
Yeah, you just got the springs, dude. You know?
I mean, if you're so far above it, like, I guess you just got to drop.
Yeah, you just jump. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, so you give us some insight into your track career. So you started jumping.
Yeah, so I started jumping. Like? So first competition I did, I was fully high jumping. I jumped, I don't know this in feet and inches. I jumped 177, which I think is about 5'10". So I jumped lower than what I scissored, but I was learning how to high jump.
Yes.
The next day I competed again and I jumped 6'5".
Holy shit.
And get this, I qualified for the national champs that day. and all these new friends that I'd got at the track club were like, oh, you've qualified for what's called English schools, which is like the top tier of like schools-based track and field in the UK. And they're like, you qualify for it. And I was like, well, when is it? And they were like, oh, it's whatever it was in July. And I was like, oh, I'm on holiday then. Like, I'm going to Spain. Like, I've got a vacation books. They're like, no, you got to cancel. Like, you can't go.
Cancel your plans.
I'm like, dude, I'm going to the beach. And I didn't go.
You're kidding. No. So you just went and partied in Spain instead? What was the deal? I mean, listen, I don't know if
I just went on holiday with my family, so it was like a chill.
Okay.
But, I mean, if it was just going away to party, I probably would have partied as well.
Yeah.
But like, high jump meant nothing to me at that point. I was just having fun with it, and I had no idea how good I was as a starting base.
Right.
And a point to, second competition in.
Sure.
Which was the day after the first one.
And like, I guess to that point, like, why should you give a shit? Your second day in, you win the thing and you qualified. And you're like, okay, whatever.
The beauty of sometimes is naivety, right? You get, as soon as someone understands how good they are, shit starts to settle in psychologically, and then you start to think about things a bit more. And actually, naivety is the beauty of certain athletes. They come in.
You're not being held back by anything.
No, and you don't know why you're good, so you just keep doing the thing that you're doing, and it keeps working.
Yeah.
And then sometimes us coaches intervene and mess with it,
right,
and completely fuck it all up. So, do you know what I mean though? Like,
of course,
it happens all the time. So. It was
because I know what's going to work best for you.
Apparently,
not,
not just naturally how you're figuring it out.
Yeah, not your this innate ability that you showed up.
It's almost like
the arrogance.
There's almost a level to it where it's like if you've got someone that is pretty talented and they start out, it should almost be that you don't mess with it. You just guide a little.
Yeah.
But actually, until it stops getting better,
don't fuck with it. I completely agree.
Don't fuck with it. Especially something so crude as high jumping.
Right.
I get it when you're involved in tactical games that require a little more. Mm-hmm. But if your job is to run straight and run fast or jump far or jump high and you keep getting better, probably unless you're going to hurt yourself.
Sure. Yeah, there's some egregious absurdity.
Keep doing what you're doing. Like you say, we have this we're going to step in. You're going to then improve more than you would if you just carried on as you are.
Sure.
And I think we're.
I mean, what is
egotistical in that sense.
Exactly. Yeah. It's.
We have to tell people that our jobs are worthy, right?
Right. I matter. What I'm doing matters here. You need me. I need you.
Yeah.
You know.
Where actually, my job as a coach, in my opinion, is to make myself redundant. Mm-hmm. I want to give you the skills and I want to give you the knowledge. And that sounds crazy to certain people, but I'm not going to be there holding your hand.
Right.
You need to fucking figure this out 100%. No matter what sport you're in.
Yeah.
So I'm there to support and guide. Mm-hmm. I'm not there to take you every step through this process.
Yeah. Well, I mean, isn't it anytime in my life I've tried to convince someone of something or I've tried to make them see things my way, tried to force them into it. That rarely works. And it rarely works well.
And it takes a certain personality.
It does. But if people can arrive at something under their own cognitions.
Oh, yeah. Or you make them believe it's under their own.
100%, even better. You know?
Yeah.
Well, that's powerful. It's profound. It's impactful. And it's ingrained.
Yeah.
And I think it leans more towards that innateness and just sort of having feeling. Because, certainly early in my coaching career, I just thought that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
That's what coaching is. I'm there because I have the answers And if you don't, you know, if I don't insert myself, I'm not being a good coach.
Yeah. 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 You're a facilitator. I think as a coach, you facilitate what's meant to happen. You line everything up. And then when the dominoes fall and it doesn't go the way that it should do, you then facilitate in a different direction. Or, you know, you facilitate a different psychological approach because this one isn't working the way that you're attacking this. You know, physically you're in good shape, but you are completely destroying what you're doing.
That's the beauty of track too, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's the simplest sport, but it's the most insular sport possible. So I mean, as a high jumper, my job is to run 9 strides or 11 strides and jump over a bar. And get this, you're also in one of 2 sports that you always end failing. So you will leave a competition having failed. That's the only reason why the competition stops. I've been in one competition in the whole time that I jumped and the whole time that I coached high jump, where a guy cleared every bar first time, cleared a bar, he cleared something like 7.3, said, I'm done.
Whoa.
And walked off. We're like,
what?
Look,
You could have done
There's another
more,
one. There's
right? Yeah.
He was happy.
Wow.
I mean, like the empowerment of that, like happiness to just walk off. Yeah. He'd won the competition. I'm satisfied. So, I mean,
do you think that guy's levitating somewhere? I mean, Jesus Christ. I know. Yeah, I've had to, and I'm guessing he was in his early 20s at this time, right? I mean, you had to.
Yeah.
I mean,
very very good mind.
You know, I was sprinting with Austin yesterday, and I ran my best 40 I'd run in a long time. Shut it down immediately. I'm 33.
Yeah,
I've learned.
You know that you do a couple more of them, and you could end up
the next one. The hamstring's ripping off the bone. I know.
Always the story.
It's always because I wanted a little more. I needed
a PR. I ran a PR. The next one,
another one.
Tore the hamstring.
Never happens that way.
Never.
It never gets better.
Never. But like you say, that's the mature step away, right?
Wow.
But anyway, going back to the track stuff.
Sure.
Did a couple more competitions that first year, and then the next year I had like a full, what we call a winter season of training. So track season finishes in like August, you have a couple weeks off, and then you'll go from like end of September through to January for an indoor season. And then you'll have a couple of months where you'll get then ready for the outdoor season.
Okay.
And had a reasonably good season. I won a national medal. I won a bronze national medal because a guy that became, well, I say this because this guy, what's called a no height, he failed his first height 3 times, so he gets no measure.
Damn.
It's like the worst thing you can do in height.
Yeah.
But he no heighted that day. He actually went on, he competed at the Olympics a lot.
Wow.
But because he no heighted that day, his name's Chris Baker. Shout out to Chris Baker if you're watching this, but you probably aren't, but yeah. Definitely not in the sports field anymore. But yeah, he no heighted, so I won a bronze medal that day. I mean, I still jumped a personal best and stuff like that day. But and that kind of started me on a journey of being involved in like not British athletics, but English athletics. So there's like, you've obviously got the 4 countries in the UK, and it's like a smaller version of international track and field rather than like the big boy stuff at an Olympic level, like that sort of level. So I went to British Championships as a senior athlete as well. Watched Olympic silver medalist jump 10 feet from me.
Oh my
God.
That's so cool.
No one understand, like, especially I watched it indoors as well, and he jumped 7.6, 7.7 that day. And just to see someone rip around like a curved approach and put his foot in the ground like someone had like fired a shotgun into the floor. That's like the feeling that you get from like 10, 15 yards from someone jumping like that. And just to see him rocket into the air,
straight fucking up,
it's so impressive. I say this to people all the time: if you've never been to world-class athletics, go. Doesn't matter what sport you're in, just go watch and observe, because you will not find humans that are more athletic.
It's game changing. So I work with Trey Hardy, right? Actually, he was just on the show this past week, and he is 40 years old. And I'm doing combine prep, and I we had a guy go top 10 last year, and Bijan Robinson, freak of nature athlete. His vert at the combine was 37, I believe. Well, Trey Hardy at 40 walks in cold, and he says, "Oh, we're jumping today." He doesn't warm up, and he jumps like 42 inches. at 40 years old. Yeah. And seeing stuff like that, I'm like, okay.
It's different.
These track athletes are...
I mean, he's not just the average track athlete.
Right. He's a freak among freaks.
One of the best ever.
Yeah. Yes, he is. But even I had another young man come in and he broke the combine record recently, Xavier Worthy, and he ran 4.21. Okay. 3 days later, he came in and trained with me. This is just this past week. And I had him sprint. And I've seen 4.3 speed. We had a guy go 4.3 the year before.
Yeah.
When I tell you, I was shocked. It took I'm being cool. I played it cool.
Yeah.
But internally, I was like, oh my God.
It's just that.
That's what fucking speed is. It totally changed. It recalibrated my understanding of what fast is.
Yeah.
And then in that moment, I realized I was like, he is not even track fast.
When, people talk about Christian Coleman, the American, if you watched him run over 20 yards, you should be like, his feet are moving so fast. And people don't understand why like sprinting is so like intense.
Yeah.
When the faster you get, the more intense
it is, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And you're watching that, you're thinking, that guy can't do that many more of them. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Like if
There's
you
no way.
would have seen him run, you're like, obviously he has a capacity to handle it because it's his own body. But we're all the same thing, right? Yeah. We've all got the same tendons, really.
Yeah, right.
So it's not like he's a leopard and can just handle, do you know what I mean? Or like he's just built in he's still a human being.
He is, yes.
So
it might be a different one, but he is still, yes.
Like you say, that there's still that ability to be like, oh, okay, that's also how you can just blow something up like instantaneously. Sure. So I just tell people all the time, just go watch someone throw a javelin 80 meters. I don't know how many feet that is. People tell me throws distances of feet, and I'm like, that is French to me, man. Like, I've got the jumps, like 7 feet, 8 feet, or something like that. Like, that's easy. As soon as you start to throw shit, but watch someone throw a javelin, watch someone high jump, watch someone pole vault, and
262 feet. Holy shit!
Right?
Yeah, that's nuts.
Right, and people are throwing them 90 meters at the moment. So add another 30 feet to that. Yeah. Yeah, so that's
the length of a football field.
Yeah,
essentially.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Throw a 7-foot spear. Yeah, that's the apex right there of humanity, right? Like in terms of
launching a
spear. Like that's just cool. Oh. Cool, man. So cool. But yeah, so like in terms of how that moved on from me high jumping and stuff, like the only reason why. I felt like I was a shoulda, woulda, coulda kind of guy. I got in my head a little bit because I don't think I knew how to manage emotionally and psychologically because I should have jumped higher. I was super, super strong for my weight and stuff. And it just never aligned how I wanted to align. So, and it kind of pivoted when my coach became ill and had to step out because I was then an athlete and a coach.
Sure.
And then I just basically just transitioned to being a coach because being an athlete and a coach in the same group just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I just had to be kind of supported and mentored by my old coach, Eric. And his background of the people that he'd been involved with people like Charlie Francis, who coached Ben Johnson, his systems and understanding things, people like that from the Polish coaches that had gone over in the 70s to Canada, like all the Gerard Mock sort of stuff, like all those guys ended up in places like Canada because they were offering big money in the 70s. Canadian athletics was, and his mentor Zoltan Tenke is the reason why we've got the Plusplyos system now.
Wow.
So he came over in the 70s. So how long that Zoltan had been coaching that sort of stuff, probably 20, 30 years. So this stuff comes from the 50s. Wow. Just in terms of how like we structure it. Obviously stuff had been, people have been doing all this sort of stuff. Maybe not the 50, I don't know. Maybe the 50, I don't know. People talk about Verkhoshansky like kicking it off in the 60s and 70s and stuff, but people have been jumping around forever.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how it distills down to today with how I try to now push it. And we are now in an era with like online presence that I think requires systematic approaches a lot more now to when you're trying to talk to, X amount of 1,000 different people in different situations.
Yeah.
I think I've tried to systematize more and more and more So it becomes a lot more understandable. Obviously, those systems, you can go out of those bandwidths, but ultimately we come back to like simplicity with dynamic movement. And that's what I try to instill and what will deliver a lot tomorrow.
What do you feel like you took away from your in-person coaching experience? Because I see you make such an impact, by the way, online and in athletics and strength and conditioning in general. Your growth has been phenomenal. It's been meteoric, and for good reason. The things you're putting out are just so helpful and applicable and understandable. You do a wonderful job. So
I appreciate that.
But I would imagine the ability to transmit that comes from a lot of reps.
Yeah. I mean, it's strange because I'm not S&C trained at all, really.
Yeah.
And a lot of my understanding of S&C just comes from track.
Yep.
Like when people talk about strength and conditioning, like they'll talk about systems and all this sort of stuff. I'm like, this is all steeped in track and field. Like I understand it because we learned all of this in track and field. And like I went through all of the similar systems, and I knew people that were doing certain types of work in the gym and how that fed into the track work that they were doing. And to be fair, I did get a big influence from another mentor of mine, James Grant, who was basically our head of performance at our university. And he was our S&C coach as well. He was a big influence on that side of things. And I did learn a hell of a lot from him. But it very much answered questions that I maybe had because I kind of understood them as an athlete in track and field. Yeah. So I'd be like, oh, that relates to this, that relates to that. It was a big era when people were talking about like force velocity curves and people training like strength speed and speed strength.
Yeah, surf the curve.
Yeah, all those sort of terms were coming in, and I was like, we do all this in track.
Yeah.
Like you'll overweight things or you'll underweight things or you're working at max velocity. We were seeing people work on pulley systems, or if you were looking to overload it, you'd be doing sled stuff. And I was like, this is all, you're just stealing this all.
We're repackaging this.
Yeah, and we're packaging it into an S&C environment. So and I always saw that the like S&C to me, when I started off, is always a means to me being able to do better stuff on the track.
Right.
So I always wanted to try and keep it simple, and that's kind of how I attack S&C in general, really. And I think it probably aligns a lot with your thoughts and processes. Like,
well, I started on the other end, where it was like, in the era and the time and the mentorship that I was under, the gold standard was get good in the weight room.
Yeah.
And all the other stuff helps. And I was having this conversation with someone the other day where it was like, when I was getting started, like there was a large proportion of coaches, not for track, but field team sports here in America, that didn't sprint.
Yeah.
And the reasoning behind that is because we don't want anyone to pull hamstrings, which, right, exactly. But, obviously,
sure.
In retrospect, that's asinine.
Yeah.
But like, things, the weight room. And I remember hearing coaches, I was listening to like Joel's podcast, Just Fly.
Yeah.
And I would hear coaches come on, and he, at the time, he was just starting his podcast, and there was all this track and field influence and the open-mindedness and the detachment from any particular tool or method or way of training, and being more focused on the principle of just getting better, what works, and discarding the rest. And that was really, that was the first time that wheel started turning for me. But dude, I started in the weight room. Like that was like, you get stronger. It's going to make you more faster and help you jump high. And like, that was my shit, And on a personal level, I got so much from that, right? So I've got my personal lens infused into that. But as time has gone on, gratefully, I've been surrounded by wonderful coaches and other influences, and certainly my own failures.
Yeah, for sure.
And my inability to move needles with things that I was so convinced.
Yeah, your bias is all of a sudden being destroyed by.
Well, shit. That's not working.
And I'm sure.
Why is that not working?
Right. And in certain instances, it works a charm.
Totally.
And then you get this other human that comes in, and you're like, well, they don't look nothing like that previous guy.
Yep.
And that's why this guy is not going anywhere.
That's right.
So it's, yeah, I think it's, track is beautiful in that sense, in that I find it really tough if I was to try and create a track system that would go online to be taken by large, because there are so many ways that you can, someone's got a hamstring issue. Yeah. I could do 45 different movements of them and we can figure out all these different, because I know that, but you know what I mean? Like
of course.
There's so much variety in what, and that's also what I see from a track influence, is that the variety in the work that I do in comparison to when I see someone that's very heavily S&C based, it's so simple, the S&C stuff. And I'm like, well, I've got 45 different movements for this hopping variation. Right. It's all a hop, and you understand that it's all a hop, but for all these different instances, I might use this variation or put the foot down like this, it's really difficult I think to make a track system. Obviously you could make it really, really simple, but ultimately what you get from that is going to be a lot less. But to sell the track and sell the S&C stuff online, it's just so much easier.
It's way easier. I can tell you because I do it.
Yeah.
I can program the things that work most of the time for most people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that is what it has to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can give as much information and as much support as I can, but at the end of the day, if it's a product and I'm not speaking to you and I don't know your background and I don't know what your struggles are and I don't know what's important to you, that's what it's got to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And inherently what I get is most people, particularly in my demographic, because it's like, high school, early college age, it's practical and simple enough and repeatable that if you do it and you're in that, you're going to get results.
Yeah.
Just you are.
Yeah.
But, there does become a place when you start lapping up against your ceiling in terms of what you're capable of, and you're really starting to push the physiological possibility of what it is that you can do.
Yeah.
That stops working.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, circles back around to why track is so special in that regard, because that's where track lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're living in Southern California now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're coaching, you're working with a team there. Am I correct? Is that why you made the move? What was the...
Well, I'm not.
You're not.
It's funny, isn't it? What you might see, and then so I'm based out of, so we work out of a facility called ProCode.
Okay.
Private facility, like collective sort of situation. And I'm just starting to work with a few individuals at the moment.
Got it.
I've actually got a couple of track guys in Dallas. I had a few that were scattered around in Europe, but in terms of when we moved, it was just much easier to now have athletes in the US.
Yeah.
You're talking time zones and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
8 hours behind the UK, trying to communicate, like even with family, it's bad enough. It's like it's like 7 a.m. to like midday, and then it's like everyone's shutting down then by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So yeah, we're still really pushing our online work and our online education, but I want to get back into coaching because I didn't coach for a year in the UK, and it just shows how much I miss it and how much I love it. So I'm working with a couple of guys. So I've got like a volleyball player that's literally just about to start as well.
Nice.
Again, helping out some track athletes, but really using it as actually my passion more than anything.
Yeah.
Like I love the educational stuff, but it just doesn't get me going like coaching does. So ultimately that's we're very lucky. When I say we, my wife and I are very lucky in that we can use the online stuff, and we've really just tried to harness that system and trying to make like the Plusplyos structure as good as it can be so that people can continually come back to us, so that we can kind of have like the lab or the fun with coaching, and it not be, every hour we have to coach, because that was what I did.
Right.
When I was in the UK, I was teaching 40 hours a week and then coaching almost 30 hours a week.
Jeez.
And dude, you know what?
I didn't know you were a teacher. What were you teaching?
I was teaching sport and exercise science.
Wow.
So, yeah.
God, you were just
burning the candle at both ends, bro. So I'd Monday, Tuesday, like training athletes at 6:30 till 8:30, teach from 9 till 4.
Fuck.
Track from 5 till 8. That was a Tuesday for me.
Dude.
The Friday nights for me and my new wife at the time.
Right.
Like Friday night, 8:30, I was out cold.
Done. Yeah.
She's looking at me like, this cannot be married life.
No.
Like, come on, dude.
I know. But Kelly, she puts up with some. There's a couple days a week that look like that for me where I start training here at 8 a.m. and I don't get home until 8:30. And it's just the way that it's kind of worked out at the moment. But I actually used to pull similar hours like that, especially when I was working in like a big box gym where it was like the name of the game is
time on the floor.
Yep, you have to, and it's one to one. And gratefully and fortunately, I've been able to expand past that and have a deeper impact on social media and just on the web. But which brings me, you've mentioned Plusplyos and you've mentioned the system a couple of times. What is Plusplyos? Tell us a little bit about the system, the application.
Yeah, so it's funny, we started my buddy John Evans, who runs THP Strength, dunking specialists specific.
Yes.
I mean, it's wild in itself, right?
Is it Isaiah?
Isaiah Rivera.
Holy shit.
It's got like a 50-inch vertical that they've measured.
Absurdity.
Absolutely insane. Just
I watched him touch 12.4 the other day.
Yeah, another special human to just observe, right? So in 2019, 2020, I was actually coaching him high jump. He wanted to high jump off of his other leg. So he dunks off his left leg, wanted to jump off his right leg. So I was coaching him high jump from afar. And then he said to me, he was like, oh, you got all this great plyometric knowledge and training. He's like, you should start like an online training.
Wait, who you were coaching? Isaiah Rivera?
No, John
Joel. John Evans.
John Evans.
We got this.
not Isaiah. No. High jump. Can you imagine? I mean, he'd probably be great.
Probably be pretty decent. Yeah. Yeah.
But so yeah, he said you should just make like an add-on program. You have like, everyone does weights. Everyone's got the weights nailed down, but no one's got a plyometric program.
Right.
So it was supplementary plyometrics. So that's what we call ourselves, Plusplyos.
Wow.
So it's like the add-on.
Oh wow.
That's where the name come from. But the whole system is from Eric's work and from Zoltan's work. And I'd done like what we class as our tiered systems. We have like rudimentary light movements. We have medium submaximal movements. We have ping tier, which is intense plyometrics. And then we have what are classed as deep tier movements, which are not plyometric, but they are part of the system as a whole. Dude, I've been doing them since 2007.
Right.
I didn't realize that no one else did this. I had no fucking clue. I had no idea. I'd show people this stuff and they're like, what the fuck are you doing?
Right.
What the fuck is this stuff? I was like, this is plyometrics. I've been doing it for like X amount of years.
I don't know, it's this thing called plyometrics. Maybe you've heard of it?
Maybe. But to everyone else, it was jumping on and off boxes.
Right, box jumps.
It was, and if you're in the track and field community, it was a bit of bounding, maybe a bit of hopping.
Right.
But like all the variety of stuff that we do, the deep stuff that we do, was all steeped in what I'd done and what Eric had done. And I think Eric had always systematized it for us, but I think I have just gone even more systematized. Like we had like med ball components to it. We had all these different weird and wonderful components that were tracky, very, very base for the track community. And I could add those bits on, but ultimately I think people just get real value in four things that I can spread amongst the week.
Yep.
I can slap them together. I can put in any scenario, and it's just really enable people then to actually, here's a starting point if you've never done pliers before.
Yes.
Here's a place that I can go to next. Here's how I get to intense plyometrics. Here's how I learn how to yield force.
Right.
And the more time that I've spent with being strict with the system, the more time that I've learned how much deeper I can go into each of those tiers.
Nice.
Like the learning that has gone into those tiers, I'm like, shit. Because I think as soon as you start to veer in too many directions, you don't nail what's going on right in front of you.
Yeah.
And I think that is really,
there's a lot of value in mastering what
exactly
you're working on right now.
Exact mastery is the perfect word. Whereas so many other people, you like you speak about things like PRI. Like, it's like, no, just fucking master. Like, you want to teach people how to get strong, just work on that. You don't need to think about breathing.
Right.
Just learn how to get people strong.
Right.
It's pretty easy until you're working with powerlifters or like,
right.
You know what I mean? Or you want to get people fast.
Yeah.
Learn how to coach people how to be fast.
Right.
You don't need to go down a different rabbit hole all the time. It doesn't have to be that.
Yeah.
You're just either impatient, you're maybe too lazy to go deeper.
Yeah. Or too insecure.
Or too insecure.
You feel like you need something else. There's a special sauce I'm missing.
Right. There are probably 10 world-class systems for sprinting and speed, right? That you could go to. They're all slightly different. You could go to any one of them. You could learn from any one of those guys.
Yeah.
Believe me, people will get faster.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
We could probably name those 10 guys straight away.
Yeah.
But people then they're like, oh, I'm going to do it with this guy and I'm going to do it with this guy.
Yeah.
And I think that for me has been like, I don't want to spend time constantly having to go left or right when I could just focus on what's in front of me. And that is just like, I can't believe how much that's opening my understanding of it. I had no idea that I'd be learning as much as I am 3 or 4 years into our business launching that I just generally feel day to day. And actually these last 2 or 3 years have been the smallest, they've been the least amount of hours I've spent actually coaching people face to face. So when I get back to that, I feel like it's just going to tenfold.
Where do you feel like, because this is your area of mastery, where do you feel like plyometrics, like what do they provide an athlete that maybe isn't so on the nose? It's like, oh, well, it helps someone jump. You know, what's some inherent value in plyometrics that you think people miss?
It's efficiency of movement. It's economy. It is, like I talk about this with, you want to think about it on the crudest level possible. You look at a distance runner. And a distance runner can improve let's say their 10K time or their 7 mile time, half marathon, whatever. When you can reduce their ground contact time by 0.05 of a second, or you can increase that by the quality in which they strike the ground, the efficiency of maintaining momentum effectively. So if you add 5 centimeters or 2 inches to a stride, it's not a lot. You can take a minute off of someone's 10K time if you did that to every single. So I talk about it to people. If you improved every single landing that you have when you sprint or when you cut or when the way that you manage your center, and Plyometrics teach you this really well, how you manage your center of mass in space. So when I put my legs out to the side of me, outside my center of mass, can I stabilize and understand how to pivot off of that, put my foot down, strike the ground, time that well, brace and stiffen at the right time, and then explode out of that. And do it in a way that I have control and I'm not tense whilst I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Because the plyos that I teach is not all just straight lines or up and down. We teach a lot of off-body center sort of work. We teach things on curves. We teach curvilinear-based plyometrics. All different directions.
You just said some beautiful stuff I want to dig in deeper to.
Yeah.
Because in most of my world, and certainly the background I come from, here's plyometrics, okay? Yeah. It's front to back, or straight up and down, and it's output. And that's it. The buck stops there. And regarding like the efficiency of movement, increasing your body's awareness, learning how to contract and relax. So a lot of times, these things, while they may be taught, aren't considered.
No.
Or aren't prioritized, or aren't viewed as being...
They're not objective.
Right.
The subjectivity of it. I come from a sport. I come from high jump. It's the most, you watch a coach, it's all this. It's smooth. It's aesthetic. It's very, very European.
Yeah.
You imagine Italian high jump coach. He's got a thin cigarette in his hand.
Right.
Run the curve again. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's the same sort of thing. If you watch like Olympic figure skating coaches, the same, like there's aesthetic to it. There is subjectivity.
There's beauty, there's art.
There's an art in it. And that's how I see movement. So I'm seeing high jump and the flow and fluidity of movement. I see that in someone moving. I don't see like the words like explosive, power, dynamic. I might use a couple of them in social media posts, but ultimately I see flow, gracefulness, fluidity of motion. Roger Federer might not be the fastest and most powerful athlete to have ever lived, but his ability to flow across a court, he looks like he's floating.
Yeah, it does.
He comes across, hits a shot, and then he's straight back in and out of that position. He's ready at the right center point.
Yeah.
And then when that shot goes out wide, he can organize his body the best. If you're a team sports athlete, you can't organize your body well, but you're really explosive, you're fucking useless.
So I'm so glad you said that, because the next thing I was going to say is I feel like so often the missing link for athletes, because I get guys that are fucking strong.
Yeah, yeah.
I get guys that can run real fast in a straight line.
Yeah.
I get guys who can jump real high straight up. But then when they get on the field, there's something missing. They can't put it all together. They can't put it together at the right time when it's necessary to be effective.
Yeah.
And the theory I've developed is because we don't give them enough opportunity to express that movement in a way that affords them the opportunity to put themselves in positions to time it correctly.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of the things that you do in terms of challenging angles and different tiers and depths of plyometrics and the coaching messaging that you use for a lot of athletes can be a game changer. And I say that as someone who's implemented this stuff with my athletes, and I notice a difference. People just feel better. And you're right. It's tough because me 5 years ago listening to this conversation right now, I'm crawling out of my skin. I'm like, you can't fucking measure that. Tell me, prove it, you know? Show me how you know, and I'll do it. But when the feedback I'm getting is like, I'm moving better. I feel better.
Who are you to
I
argue?
feel explosive. Coming from the guy who has 6 years playing running back in the NFL, I'm like, okay. And I see it.
Who the fuck are you to argue?
Yeah.
How can you argue with that?
Yeah. It's I would describe the extra layer of a variety of plyometrics and not just being, and trust me, I love my outputs.
Of course.
It's fucking fun. The other day we were doing broad jumps and we were measuring it. And it's just, we're competing. Just go, dude.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You got to have fun.
But then later, it was about deep tier jumping, alternating lunge jumps. And we were just going for time. And the communication is make it easy.
Yeah. And they feel good coming off about them. Yeah. It's unfortunate in my world of trying to also run a business in that subjectivity does not sell.
No.
Objectivity is the best selling metric on
100%.
planet Earth.
Yeah.
Your foot went from da-da-da to da-da-da.
Yeah.
And there is some objectivity that can come from it, and I'm trying to figure out ways to measure those, but ultimately it gets to a point where I'm like, do you know what, I just don't care. Like the subjectivity will come through and enough people will just sing praises of how well they feel. Like you say, I just feel better when I'm doing this cut or when I'm getting in and out of this movement. And people say like, how do you get there? Like, what are the processes of getting to those stages? And it's very much a whole lot of different things coming together at the right time.
Can you go do a deep dive on just the way that you have things tiered and maybe just spend a couple of minutes talking about each one and where you feel like those things add value or can offer something unique to any athlete?
Yeah. So we'll go from like bottom up sort of thing, and we'll leave the deep tier to the end. Okay. So we start with light. We call it the light tier, which is just rudimentary movement where we're trying to be fast off the ground, but we're not trying to elicit much force. It's, very easy on the feet. And in those instances, there's a hell of a lot to be learned with regards to people starting out, people returning from injury, starting a session. Like if you don't start there, it's like, where do you start sort of thing? So, and that sounds ridiculous, but people were like, where do you get most value from it? And I'm like, if you're not doing this stuff in your warm up, you're an idiot. Yeah. You're a moron. Like
such a low hanging fruit.
It's just the
good way to get good, easy, relaxed contact.
Exactly.
And you get prepared for heavier shit and more intense stuff later.
Exactly. And ultimately, if you want to build some robustness with the lower legs, I think this is where you build a hell of a lot of volume. Obviously, there does have to be that segment of having the high intensity stuff there as well, because you can't just expect transfer from doing all this lower leg stuff.
Sure.
Because people get that twisted a little bit with the Altis rudimentary hop series. They're like, oh, this is going to solve all my issues for my lower legs. And I'm like, that's great, and I love what Altis do, But I think that was just an easy thing for them to put out, and they'll add it into what their track guys are doing. But ultimately, they then go and triple jump, or they then go and so they're
right. They're still
piecing
getting
it all together.
Yeah, they're getting the stimulus.
Exactly.
That powerful, potent.
But if you're just expecting that to be your plyometrics for your lower legs, or something for your lower legs that's going to prepare them, I just don't think that there's enough. You have to have another step up from that, doing those same movements. So that light stuff is really just a real fundamental base for what's going to happen in the submaximal stuff.
And in terms of contacts, let's say on a session basis or a weekly basis, do you have general parameters?
So like a weekly or microcyclically exposure, depending on whether you run like a 7-day, 10-day or 14-day. I normally will go that every 7 days, I would probably at least hit light tier movements 3 days a week.
Okay.
That's probably going to align with every dynamic session you do, whether it's with your S&C coach or whether it's on the field.
Yeah.
So in every warm up, do some light tier movements, and you could choose 3 to 4 light tier movements. It could be 2 to 3. It could be 1 to 2. It doesn't have to be massive. And I would chase maybe 3 or 4 different variations. So each one of them is slightly different.
Yes.
So you could be using like a bilateral normal stance, bilateral split stance, an exchanging stance, a hop, a bound. You could be doing it in different directions. And ultimately, I would probably start straight forward, go to something lateral, go to something backwards, and then do some diagonal. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But like that's really where it doesn't matter.
Yep.
And where you are as an athlete, you find one that you just friggin' love, and you're like, this one gets me ready every time.
Yep. Feels
Make
good.
sure it's in there.
Yep.
Don't be too ridiculous about it. But have your staples. Make sure you're always doing something backwards. You're always doing something lateral. And you could be doing 10 to 15 landings of those.
Yeah.
10 to 15 for the bilateral, 8 to 12 for the unilateral. And you do that 3 or 4 times a week.
Yeah.
You're good.
Yeah.
You're probably pretty good. If you want to increase that and you want to really go somewhere with that you've got more time to do it in an off season, then you can just increase how much exposure. You might go to 5 or 6 different movements for that.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you just have to see how that affects what else is going on the rest of your session. So if your fatigue capacity is taken up too much by the light tier, then you've got this little window at the top for like 2 movements in the medium tier. Understand where you have to modulate that.
Yes. What's important to you?
What's important? You still need a couple of light tier, but ultimately we want to get to the medium tier. So, and that step up into the medium tier is just looking at what may look like intense forms of plyometrics, but actually if I was to ask you what that feels like, it's pretty submaximal. It's pretty easy on me. I can have a conversation with you, but you're still moving as you bound across there.
Sure.
And the stiffness on the ground, so the speed of things has to be pretty fast still.
Yep.
But you have to have that relaxed state to it that's not like you're really trying to hit the ground.
Right. It's less of like a violent collision.
Exactly that. There's that sub-maximal level to it, but it still has maximal in that word, so it's just below that. You're turning it down. I can let my cheeks kind of flop in the wind as I'm midair, and I can have a conversation with you if I wanted to. And if you want to find where that point is, do something maximal. So, bound for maximal distance and then just turn it down a notch.
Yep. Just back that down.
Yeah.
Make it feel less violent on your system.
And straight away you'll be like, oh, that's submaximal. People can't believe that. I'm like, people have no idea when honestly, it baffles me with plyometric stuff. People are like, oh, how do you get from here to here? And I'm like, well, you start here, you do a little bit more, you do a little bit more, just get bigger. and
increase intensity week over week for a little while and see what happens.
Baffling, isn't it? Like, it's just, people just can't figure that out. So the submaximal stuff again is ultimately where you're going to get what I would class as your intense plyometrics, but multi-directionally.
Okay.
Because it's not maximal when you move multi-directionally.
Can't be.
You just can't hop maximally sideways. The time on the ground is going to drop significantly. The actual intensity of the ground reaction forces is going to be a lot less.
Sure.
Okay, you're going to get more work on the
There's just not enough speed either.
Exactly.
Right? Is that what it comes down to, really? It's the speed with which you have to
the intent
manage
behind
the
it and how you manage that collision. Exactly. People say, but we're overloading like the finer stability muscles. I'm like, great, but you're not overloading the main movers. That ain't going to make you run faster.
Yeah.
You still have to load the hamstrings and you have to load the gastroc and the quads. They're like, yeah, but my perineals are getting a good. I'm like, okay, that's great.
That's nice.
You're getting that work and you need
robustness.
it. You need that robustness, but it's not the facilitator that's going to increase what we all actually want to be there, which is moving maximally with max intent in a game-like scenario.
Yeah.
So multi-directional stuff in the sub-maximal tier is wholeheartedly the biggest win. Also, volume at that high volumes at that tier is where you're going to build more infrastructure, if you want to call it like that. You know, the physical components of adaptation is going to come in a lot there because you're able to do a high volume. We all want adaptations physically at the intense stuff.
Yeah.
You just can't do anything. You really, like, the intensity, the volume drops to like 30-40% in comparison to medium.
Daniel Bach said something one time to me. He said, it's really hard to build structure in low rep ranges with high intent. It just doesn't come from that.
It just doesn't come from it.
So and then, you know, obviously in the way you've tiered this system out is each one sort of builds a foundation for the next one to be more efficient and effective and impactful.
But you always have all four.
Yeah.
People get it twisted.
Like I'm graduated.
Yeah.
I no longer do the rudiment stuff because I've reached a certain marker in my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it always, because
it's a toggle game of how much you're dosing for any period of time.
Exactly. So going back to your point where you were saying we've got these athletes with like newfound speeds, crazy strengths. You know, they've increased their 40 time, but they don't know how to use it. That's why you have all these levels up. So the light tier, where I learn a hell of a lot of proprioceptive awareness, when you're dealing with someone, in my mind, that has crazy newfound strengths, more speed, better change of direction ability, whatever it might be, with terms of like max output, you have to step up and assume that that's a whole new athlete. When you've taken such large steps up in the off season.
Yeah.
So you have to relearn how to proprioceptively deal with things with these newly found outputs.
Sure.
It's
just because you have access to the outputs in one setting doesn't afford you the opportunity to engage in them in all scenarios.
So that's where the tiers constantly level up with your ability to improve or your ability to adapt. So you insert that light tier back in. You got to learn how to deal with X amount more force in something that now feels rudimentary that before might have felt submaximal.
Right.
Because that's also what you do.
Yep.
Your speed reserve or your strength reserve or your explosive reserve is stepping up.
Yeah.
So
same with Plios.
Yeah. So in the high jump, right, the fastest athlete potentially should be the highest jumper. Because physics says the faster you run, the higher you can jump.
Right.
So if let's say we're measuring it at 40 times and I run a 4.5 and you run a 4.6, my 50% is faster than your 50%. And that's what we high jump at, roughly.
Yeah, sure.
So it's going to, if I do something at 50% and I'm like, this is fucking easy, but you're at 75.
Yeah.
God, that's a lot harder on me.
Yeah.
The amount that we do then gets, like I said, there's a lot more detriment. I can do 10 takeoffs. You can only do 8.
Yeah.
Because it's 75% to you.
Crushed, buried.
Exactly. So it's the same principle in how those step up. So when we get to the intense stuff, I call it the ping tier, because a lot of what, like, people ask me about, like, whether I use more deeper intense stuff when it comes to things like depth jumping as opposed to drop jumping.
Right.
So my work is more the drop jump vibe. So it's about
would be ping tier.
So I want to maintain as much intent behind it, but I also want to keep those ground contacts really short.
Right. We're not talking a ton of deformation.
Yeah, it's pure reactive strength in that sense. There is time and a place for that, and that's where we have a conversation one-on-one. Are you ready for this stuff? 99% of the population that I work with, and that ranges from young kids to Olympians.
Sure.
We don't necessarily need depth jumps.
Yeah. In
my humble opinion.
Yeah.
There's times where I don't even go there. So honestly, it's like 1% of people. I've got a 30-year-old athlete that's been there.
Take me through that scenario. What are the circumstances that you would say where that's appropriate?
It's when over a period of time, we're talking maybe 6 months, that we're now at a stage where I'm like, the ping tier stuff, it's not really changing for me.
It's not, yeah.
Visually, I'm not seeing that much more out of it. We're not seeing those changes maybe in the sport. So if it's in track and field. So like, what can I really do to shock your system?
Yeah.
I'll
That's
use
the shock method.
I'll use a stimulus that you can't create.
Yeah.
And people use it with fucking 12-year-olds.
Right.
I'm like, dude, just get them to jump on the spot. There's your depth jump every single time.
Yeah.
These kids don't know where their feet are. They like kids that are going through the middle of puberty. Just teach them how to land and take off and do it in 1,000 different ways and guarantee you they will become a well-rounded athlete.
Yes.
Exposure. So, yeah, I think that people are biting off more than they can chew too early. And then they hit this performance ceiling very, very early because we haven't had this foundational growth that actually isn't the foundational growth that just stays there. People talk about this. If you were to use like
as
an
if
analogy,
it's like a concrete block for a home.
No,
you know, like
foundationally,
the foundation.
those foundations step up again, and they step up again. Yeah, my foundations are different to your foundations.
100%.
They're not all the same foundations. It's not like the back squat foundation is, let's get everyone to back squat 225. Once you've done that, you can step up. No, plyometrics is, it might now be 275 for this athlete. It might now be.
Yes.
So
or regress is the case.
Or regress.
Frankly, you know, if you're not getting the exposure or the
people come off that season, they've not done anything dynamically. They've had a long old season on like basketballers. Jeez, they come to you in bits sometimes.
Yeah,
they've done a big season. They play too much. Hockey players are terrible for it.
Shambles.
They just play so much.
NFL guys, everyone knows you get less athletic over the course of a season. Everybody knows that. Everybody. And I was on a rant the other day talking about how guys, a lot of guys' careers end sooner than they perhaps should. Yeah. Because the time that they are afforded to improve athletic qualities,
they've only got so much of a
You've only got so much off time, you know? You've only got so much off season every year. And that's your opportunity to fucking kick the can back up the hill for a little while longer because it's going to keep rolling back down.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about it between your age and the amount of time you're spending not getting better.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've really got to spend it getting better.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going on the rant again.
No. It's right though. It makes sense to me. And I think that regressing is a huge thing, and that's also where people get really hurt, is that they go back to the things that they thought that they could do.
Yeah, previously.
Or they did.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily work. So why is the tiered system so valuable in that sense? Is that everything that we do is locomotive on the ground, and it's self-selected by what you can do right now. So if I tell you to maximally jump for height on the spot and react to it, and you jump 10 inches in the air in comparison to end of last off season and you were jumping 20 inches into the air, you're self-selecting what you can do there, right? And that provides you with X stimulus. If I chuck you off the same box, it's that same stimulus, and boy, you were not ready for it. So that's where we always end up, self-selecting what you can do.
What you've been able to do on social media, and the time that I've seen you active, the growth you've had, the success you've had with Plusplyos and the app, and just, can you talk a little bit about when did social media become a reality for you? When were you like, I'm going to put time and effort into this, and why? And what has the journey been like?
So I was starting to put a few things out when I started with John Evans, and actually I think my starting point with social media was more writing some blogs for Simply Faster, and I'd put around 3 or 4 blogs up. Maybe we've got like 5 or so now, just on there, and I really got a lot of people asking me questions, and I was like, oh, okay, people are interested in this. People are interested in just some of my opinions and just different approaches to maybe ways that they hadn't really attacked it. And so I started to do a little bit on Instagram, and that's where I felt that I was getting kind of good impact. I felt Twitter was just, I don't know. Yeah, it's just tough. Twitter's a tough one. You got to be on there too much. I mean, I'm on Instagram too much, but I felt like I was on Twitter far too much. It was like constant. It was like 7, 8, 9, 10 12 tweets a day.
Twitter can bring out the worst in people too.
And that. They bring the cavalry, bro. And
speaking of bringing the cavalry, real quick, would you say that reverse sled drags or rudiment reverse hops would be a better stimulus for your tibs?
I reckon a hop. Might do right. I reckon a hop might do right. But I am biased. I haven't done many reverse sled drags myself.
Sure.
But I also do know that there's nothing quite like a backwards hop. So anyway, going back to the social media stuff. Dude, I put the post up and I got the hate, and that's you got to take it because you just enjoy it with the rest of the guys that love to enjoy the hate.
Yes.
And I've been blocked and everything.
Same.
So yeah.
We're in the club. You and I.
Oh, and I'm sure we'll see Jake, and he's part of the club. I definitely know he's part of the club.
Yeah, for sure.
He's been double blocked. I'm like, if you can do that. So I think it was around like when COVID was kind of hitting hard. I think I was maybe doing like 2 or 3 posts a week on Instagram. Mm-hmm. And dude, it felt like a lot.
Right.
It felt like a lot, 2 or 3 posts. I just saw growth. We launched our business in summer of 2020. The more I posted, the more business we got. Yeah. And it was like an ATM. Right?
Yeah,
just like input, output. So, big shift. Obviously, we all saw the big shift. I think with like 2022 was big growth for a lot of people.
Sure.
The reels were popping.
They were. The reels were hot.
The reels were
moving.
They were moving.
The likes were abundant.
They were abundant. I don't know where those people went, but
the almighty algorithm.
Yeah, those motherfuckers have just taken off on a ship somewhere and they're not coming back.
It's not like it used to be. We're the old men on the front porch.
Yeah. And
of course, I really started after that. So I missed
Bro, you're ahead of where I am, I think, with followers on Instagram. So it just made sense to me. Like, I think that the conversations that I was having was far more impactful than the engagement sort of thing in the actual post. Conversations that I was having with coaches that I didn't feel like I had any right to be having conversations with started to come about. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I do know what I'm talking about.
Maybe I belong at this stage.
Yeah, maybe I belong at it. And I just started to see a lot more people like yourself being like, we were kind of like, we're at similar age, similar stage in our career.
Yeah.
Just trying to, make it work and putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
It pisses me off when people come at you and they feed you all this bullshit. And I'm like, we're putting our opinions on a platform.
I'm laying it out there for scrutiny.
Right?
And
if I was someone to say that I didn't think that I was going to get some sort of something back, I'd be stupid to say that. So I just felt that the more people that I was having good conversations with, the better things were becoming with me with regards to how I approach things more professionally. And I think that's how I sometimes take the piss in a few posts, but ultimately, like, I want that professionalism to come through then in the system that I kind of relate to people. Yeah. It's not just some fucking smorgasbord of shit that I'm like, oh, this works, and this works.
Right.
No, I really want to give people something that they can really look at and go,
something that I feel like that when you put out content and information, most of the time it's very obvious to me that it's been thought out. That you've spent time on it, and the effort. Where I see that bleed through is that almost always you're giving things that people, if they just read it they just really watch it, they can start doing it. Yeah. You give them enough information for them to really, you give people autonomy. You give them an opportunity to start inserting this stuff. Yeah. Which is fantastic. You're not gatekeeping anything.
No. And that's what I'm trying to do. Right? Someone that kind of helps me out with business mentoring and stuff. And she's like, give it all away. Because at certain points, those people will come back to you and they'll be like, you can't be giving it all away. So I want to learn. And sometimes it just takes reiterating it in their scenario. And they're like, fuck, I didn't realize that.
Well, you know what the thing I've learned about that too is, one, giving it away is a gift and you will help people. But I've also found that it's impossible. You know who said this the other day? David Gray. And he said, it's impossible to truly give it all away.
Of course.
You can't. There's so much nuance.
You've only got so much time in a post or so many slides or
and ultimately, people, even if they were to take whatever system or thought processes that you have and they implement it, they're implementing it through their lens.
Yeah.
And at some point, people want to spend the time with you or are willing to do what it takes to really make an effort to understand it through your lens. And certainly that's where I've found the most value. I've found that's the thing that's most effective in making me a better coach is not even necessarily just looking at through another coach's eyes, but both experiences. I want to see it as much as I can through your eyes, through your perspective. And then I need to get out there and kick it around for a little bit and chew on it and say, I don't know, and then return back to it. And, that process is important. It's an important one.
Well, yeah. And I think where there's a couple of big hitters in our industry that, we all bash because it's one-way communication.
Yeah.
And that they don't think about how the other person interprets it. Mm-hmm. And they might not answer anything but positive comments.
Right.
And all right, great. It might be a great business way to go about things. Ultimately,
just saying my system's the best system.
Yeah.
And if you do X, Y, and Z, then you're guaranteed going to have this outcome. Yeah. Or being willing to put out anything for the sake of trying to garner.
Yeah.
And
I think a lot of us have, we have goals. Like I always have goals to be able to implement these sort of systems at the highest level.
Sure.
Of course. Can an organization, professional organization, take this system? Like that is dreams.
Speaking of that, the Atlanta Braves had you out.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Of course we can. Yeah.
Tell me about it. What was that experience like?
Unbelievable.
They rolled out the red carpet for you too.
We went to the spring training facility down in Sarasota, which is like they're there for like 8 weeks a year. The pros are, and it's fucking insane.
Beautiful.
It is amazing. So I presented to all of their S&C coaches.
Wow.
Through all the minor leagues, through to the major leagues. Wow. 2 days, presented everything, and couldn't believe the response that I got from it. It was just, just sort of things that you're like, fuck, I can tick that off a box to have worked at that level.
Yes.
Of that stature of organization. I'm not saying every organization has also got it together, but like just fantastic. The hospitality was amazing. They looked after me, and it just was, again, it was a learning experience. I went there and I'm like, I want to go again and show them what else. Do you know what I mean? Like what things I've learned from this.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thought process. So because I'm only 33, I think that's what you feel like. If I was 53, maybe you've done it a few times and you're like, no, this is how I would deliver it all the time to them. But like I want the next decade or 15 or 20 years to be like that. I want to be like, I went to the break, or like if I could go to an MBA organization, I'm like, fuck, like it would be a way for me to level up what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. Funnily enough, what we're delivering tomorrow is stuff that I delivered at the Braves that I've then worked on since, that I feel needs to come to my seminars now on just like one dayers.
Nice.
And there is no magic pill in difference of working with pros to working with, we'll have people just working with Gen Pop.
Ordinary people.
So
I kind of derailed us. Just returning back to the social media thing. What are some lessons you've learned?
I know that this sounds strange to certain people, but I always say to them, always have an empty inbox. That was the thing that I tried to do the first couple of years. So until maybe, I still do today. Sometimes I don't answer them, but I'll open the message. Yeah. But like, I try to have conversations with everyone. I tried to have conversations with everyone. And I think that is, because I know a few guys that do well that do not do that. I don't answer anything. And that to me, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Not sure about it. I don't know. I'm a people person, and I love to have conversations with people.
I've met coaches that I reached out to when I was trying to get started that left me on red, and when I met them in person, they probably didn't remember or anything like that, but I didn't forget. And I also remember the coaches who took the time to answer my stupid fucking question, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And, there are times where I get messages and I'm like, dude, you're killing me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, I also remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that for me has opened so many doors.
Yes.
That I had no idea that I was going to be making relationships with people based on those conversations. And do you know what's crazy? Is you get a DM from someone that has no social media presence, that you don't know who they are and who their name is. And then you're like, oh yeah, I work for da-da-da. And you're like, who, what the fuck? I go on LinkedIn. Oh yeah, this guy's the head of performance for a Premier League football club.
Right.
Or like,
right.
So like, there's also those DMs left in your inboxes if you don't answer them. So it doesn't matter if you've got 200 followers or 200,000 followers.
What's the saying? Treat the janitor like the CEO.
Yeah.
Just don't be a dick.
Yeah, and you don't know who you're talking to.
Yeah,
it could be an egg with a name, but just don't be a dick. So that I will say that every day. That is my biggest thing to go with. Is don't leave.
So I've got some rapid fire questions for you as we wrap things up.
Shoot.
Okay. In an effort to make it rapid fire, we'll try and keep answers as short, as condensed as possible.
Okay.
Okay. So prep yourself.
Okay.
The first one is rant. So what are some things that you're seeing that in our space and training that you don't love?
I don't love this is how Usain Bolt moves, so therefore this could be the way that you should now train to move like him. Or like, we observe this in this athlete, therefore we should then be looking at it as a training thing.
Yeah.
See a lot of it. LeBron James has a weird foot structure. Therefore, it's okay to have flat feet and to have shitty feet and move well.
Yeah.
But they also don't talk about Michael Jordan, who's got like a perfectly high arched foot. So, right?
Yep.
There you go. And
nailed it.
No, okay.
Perfect. Very well done. Okay. Rave. What are some things you love that you're seeing?
Damn, I gotta think of this one. What do I love? What do I love to see at the moment? I like to see, and I'm going to say this from a very biased point of view, but I love to see how many people are using deep tier work.
Yeah, me being one of them. Okay, great. What are 3 things someone can do right now, no matter where they are, to get to where you are?
Find something that you absolutely fucking love, and you can find out really quickly by also then doing the next step, and that's spending a year, trying to figure out a little system and going to town on it constantly digging, like, how can this be made better? What else does this provide? How can this fit into every scenario? Why doesn't it fit into every scenario? Maybe the system isn't right. And if you hate it by the end of the first year, you don't love it. Third, there's certain people that also, I think I carry a lot of passion about what I do. Some people just don't carry it.
Yeah.
I just don't know how to fucking resonate. So like,
yeah, I get that.
Right.
So find out what you love. Try and master it. Develop a passion for it.
Yeah.
Those 3 sound pretty good to me.
Because if you don't find the passion for it, then you don't love it.
Yeah. Last one. Solicited advice. So you and I, we're at the seminar tomorrow.
Yeah.
You walk in, you meet someone you've never met for the first time, and before they can blurt out their name, you just give them some advice. And it can be about anything. Okay. Just completely unprovoked. You're going to give this person some advice.
Even if you're a coach, rehab specialist, whatever you are, start doing a plyometric program the minute you leave this seminar, and do it for the next year, and do it constantly. Do it. Expose yourself to it every week for the next year. Then you will have a true understanding of how to coach this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you can have all the knowledge that I'm going to deliver tomorrow.
Yeah.
But unless you start on it and you get the feeling, you get the objective measures that come from it, and you understand it to that degree, you're still not going to have the knowledge that you think that you're going to want to gain from learning from me.
Yeah.
Exposure is everything.
Yeah.
And go to more seminars, because I think people, every time you go to a seminar, every time I run a seminar, the attendees just love being in a learning environment like that. And it's just empowering. Like-minded people.
Yes. Where can people find you?
Instagram, McInnes Watson, MCINNESWATSON.
Nice.
And Plusplyos.com.
Dude, thanks for coming out. Thanks for hopping on the pod.
This is awesome. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm so excited for tomorrow. And thank you for having me in Austin Collective. I appreciate what you've done, what you're going to now be doing with this podcast.
By the way, it should be noted, he was the final nudge I needed to get this podcast going. I'd had a few other people in my circle give me some encouragement and ask me essentially, why the fuck aren't you doing this? And then he was the straw that broke the camel's back. So thank you. And
you've got a very good voice and approach to things, and I think people need to learn from that. So,
well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. Everybody, thanks for listening or watching, as the case may be. We'll see you next time.